Hi, everyone, and welcome to episode 281 of the Tick Bootcamp podcast. The title of today's interview is My Promise to Alex, an interview with author Jody Hudson. My name is Alexandra Castellanos.
And my name is Richard Johansson. Folks, we have a special episode of the Tick Bootcamp podcast for you this week. And we have two really powerful women, two powerful moms who are both authors and they have parented line. And we thought it would be perfect to have these two people come together with Alex Castellanos as the co-host because they actually had a pre-existing relationship prior to the publication of My Promise to Alex.
It's been such an honor to know Jody and to know her journey. I was given the opportunity to pre-read her book, My Promise to Alex, Through Pain Comes Purpose. Jody asked me for input and for me to even leave a quote on her book, which I was really blessed to do. After reading the book several times, every time I had read it, I had a different emotional experience. We've come full circle, and I feel so privileged to guest co-host Jody Hudson today. Without further ado, I introduce Jody Hudson, author of My Promise to Alex, Through Pain Comes Purpose.
Hello, Jody Hudson and Alex Castellanos, and welcome to the Tick Bootcamp podcast.
Good morning.
Good morning, all.
So I want to thank both of you for rejoining us. We have had an opportunity to interview Jody on episode 86 of the podcast. That was the Bluebird episode, an interview with Jody Hudson. And for those of you who want to know more about Jody's background, please refer to that episode. And of course, you all know that Alex Castellanos has become one of our favorite people. We interviewed her and her daughter, Maddie, on episode 200. And Alex has been kind enough to co-host with me once before. And we worked together on episode 263. And I guess it didn't go too badly because Alex agreed to rejoin me as a special co-host for the second time. So thank you so much, Alex, for joining me for a second time.
No, thank you, guys.
So today we're going to talk about a really powerful book that I read recently, My Promise to Alex, Through Pain Comes Purpose, written by Jody Hudson, and Jody's now written version of what you shared with us in episode 86. So Jody, why don't you first begin to talk with us about the inspiration for this book, meaning why did you write this book?
Sure. So I never, intended to be an author, nor did I intend to lose a daughter to Lyme disease. But in March of 2018, when Alex passed away, I knew that there was something that I needed to do to carry on her legacy. I knew that I just didn't want to be identified as a grief girl, right? I wanted to be able to inspire others. And I wanted Alex's life as well as her suffering to mean something. So she passed in March, and of September, I started thinking that I needed to get her story out of my head. There was so much that had happened that even my closest, my inner circle, didn't realize what was going on, because from 2017 to 2018, before Alex passed, I was just trying to save my daughter. I didn't have time to bring everybody along on the journey, right? I was just go, dog, go. So I started thinking, all right, I've got to get this out of my head. And I just sat down one evening and started typing words on the laptop. And it was tough. Like, I think it was part of the healing that I needed to go through to be able to move on. I didn't go through a support group. I didn't go through any of that after Alex passed, because I just had so many projects and things that I wanted to do to carry on her legacy. But I started writing, and 4 months later, I had 50,000 words. And like I said, I'm not an author. I'm not a writer by trade at all. But I knew then it was a divine moment. Something had happened, and I really needed to make sure I did the story justice, and I needed to make sure that I got this story out, and it was a story to be shared with so many individuals. It just happened naturally.
So Jody, one of the things that I discovered when I read the book, and this was actually after I had invited Alex to be my co-host, is that one of the people who had reviewed the book before it was published, and ultimately wrote a really beautiful passage introducing us to the book was my co-host, Alex Castellanos. So I have to admit, on some level, there was a little jealousy that I didn't get an advanced copy and I wasn't given the same opportunity that Alex was given. But so Alex, talk to us about what it was like to be given the privilege of reading this beautiful book before it was published, and to have an opportunity to give Jody some input before it was put out into the world.
Definitely. No. So I met Jody, my goodness, we met through Hannah, someone else that has Lyme. So I was introduced through Jody that way. And I remember also seeing the Alex Hudson Foundation when my daughter Madeline was sick. And I just remember, just doing some research and looking. And then somehow we ended up just crossing paths, and I felt this immediate connection with Jody. I hope it's the same, but
Absolutely.
I really did. Something resonated with us, and maybe it's, a mom thing, but I feel so close to Jody. I actually look up to Jody so much. And even when I found out that she was going to be interviewed for this for me was like, oh my gosh, who's my dream, person that I could interview? It would always be Jody. It would be you. Sorry, but to get back to the book, I wanted to talk about how I met you. I met you through Hannah, and we just would send a couple of messages here and there. And then you had mentioned that you were writing a book, and I just thought, wow, because Jody had a story to share, Alex's story, and I knew it was going to help so many mothers out there, because there's really nothing out there like this, and the way Jody writes and the way Jody shares Alex's journey with, the mast cell and the Lyme, because it ultimately, it just really, it ravished, and it did a lot, there. So I don't think that we have anything out there like that. And you just share so much in regards to your relationship with Alex. It's just a really beautiful, beautiful story. And I'm so honored, Jody. Thank you for allowing me to read it, because it just meant so much to me. You are amazing. I'm in awe of you.
Oh, you're very sweet. I think one of the reasons why I wanted to send it to Alex and send it to a mom who, went through what I went through with my own daughter it was so important for me to, again, not being a writer, I needed to make sure that I was capturing Alex's story in a way that people would get it. People would understand, right? Am I putting in too much? Am I putting in too little? Does it make sense? My goal was, gosh, I could get one or two people to say, yes, I understand this. This all makes sense. Then that would be great. And when I gave the manuscript to Alex, and she responded back in the manner that she did, I'm like, oh, thank you, God. Yes, this is going to be the story that, Alex wants me to write, that God wants to get out, and that I know it's going to resonate with people. So having her affirmation gave me so much confidence. So she doesn't even realize it. I think I've told her before, but she really propelled me in this journey just by her confidence in me.
So Alex, now I have to put you on the spot. How does this feel to know now that God acted through you and spoke through you and put it on Jody's heart that, she now had the validation she needed to go forward with putting this book into
right. No, it's so beautiful. And I'm looking at it right now, Jody. I've read your book, and I know other people are going to, I've read your book at least like 3 times. It's just really, really quick. I just love it. And I feel like every time I read it, there's something else there that I'm learning or that I'm connecting with. This last time that I read it, it was really the first time, and it makes my heart so happy. It was the first time that I didn't cry. I read it, and I read it as a mom, just having a connection with you and with Alex. And my heart was open, and I was happy. And I feel like I had closure, It's just so beautiful. You would never know this is your first book, Jody. And I hope there's more.
So Jody, let's talk about the title first, right? Because the purpose of our conversation today is to share with the world how this book could be helpful to other people on the journey. And I think this book would be helpful to anyone on the journey themselves. I think this book would be very helpful to any parent or any family member who is on the journey with someone who is going through this. And I think it would be a helpful book for anyone who is, you know, in a position where they love someone who has Lyme disease. So let's talk about the title first, because I was really moved by the title even before I read the book, which is A Promise to Alex, Through Pain Comes Purpose. Why did you use the subtitle Through Pain Comes Purpose?
Oh gosh. So in the moment when Alex passed, and I tell people that that was her greatest moment, it was my hardest moment, because you both have read the book and you know that just in that moment, when she passed, she gave me a parting gift where she, you know, looked up, opened up her eyes and smiled this beautiful smile for the last time. And then she put her head back on the pillow and she passed. And I knew that, you know, I had to make something of that. As I gave her permission to move on, she was giving me permission to move on with what I needed to do with the foundation, with writing this book, and to make something of all this pain and suffering that she went through. And, you know, when people asked me after Alex passed, you know, how do you get out of bed in the morning? God, that would just like bring me to my knees. I wouldn't be able to move forward. And I was so startled by people asking me that, because I thought, how do you not move on? Your child just went through one of the most, you know, awful, you know, year of this pain and the suffering of people not believing of everything that she went through. How do I just sit back and do nothing about that? And so, as painful as it was for me to lose Alex, I knew in that moment I had to do more. So that was by starting this foundation, by eventually, you know, writing this book, getting her story out. Alex and I were always one with everything that we had done in our lives, just because of everything that we had gone through personally. And it was just a continuation of that. Yes, she's not here with me physically, but we're still doing this together. She gave me the words to write this book. She, you know, gave me the motivation, the inspiration to write this book and to continue to move forward with what she wanted to have done, which was to be that Lyme warrior, which was to give people hope, which despite everything that she went through, she still showed up every day and said, I'm going to beat this disease. And she didn't, but my hope is that by people reading this story, no matter what they are going through in life, they will see that perseverance, they will see that determination, and they will see someone that never gave up until God called her back home. I mean, she never took pain medication, Rich. And you know, for people that have chronic illness, I'd be the first one to say, you know what, give me that tray of whatever you've got, because I need to numb this pain. Alex wanted to be so present for that journey of whatever it was that God was, you know, bringing her through. So yeah, I had to do something with all that pain that she suffered and that I suffered losing a child, and I had to create purpose from it.
Well, let's talk about the grief cycle, because as moms, both of you had to go through the grief cycle when you discovered that your children were sick, and that you know, you were going to have a very different relationship with your children, right? And we understand the grief cycle to begin with denial, right? And then after denial, we get to anger, and after anger, we get to sadness and sometimes depression. We then take the next step to bargaining, and ultimately we get to acceptance, right? And in some cases, people just stay in the grief cycle, and they just cycle down and cycle downward and cycle downward, and just can't get out of the grief, and therefore can't get to a point where they can heal. There are some people who get out of the grief cycle, right, by creating something new, right? And they find a purpose. And both of you, I think, are models for finding purpose, not only purpose in helping your own children, but purpose in creating foundations, in writing books, and ultimately becoming advocates in the community. So talk to us about how important it is to get out of the grief cycle and ultimately find purpose, first for you and then for your children.
Alex, do you want to go first?
No. I'd love to hear from.
Okay.
Yes.
So definitely for me, I think I always operated best in project mode, even when Alex was going through the 40 doctors, even as we were going cross country in that last year, trying to find facility after facility, doctor after doctor, treatment after treatment that was going to cure her. I didn't stay in my emotions. It was like, okay, here's a checklist, boom, boom, boom. Let's just, keep moving forward, doing this. When she passed, I kind of did the same thing too. I was, all right, I've got to do this step next. I've got to, this money's pouring in, in honor of Alex. What am I going to do with it? Start the foundation. Okay, now I'm going to do events to, let people know about this foundation that I've created. I was always just in project mode. And for me, that helped me deal with my grief. It wasn't until I started writing this book where I really actually allowed myself to feel the grief, to go, wow, God, Jody, like you just went through some hell. Like I didn't even realize, I think I was still in PTSD. I was still in trauma. I didn't realize until I started writing this and putting into words what I had lived, what I had gone through. And I'm like, I don't even believe the words that I'm writing. And that just gave me greater purpose and strength to make sure that I did a good job with this book, because I really wanted people to see the horrors of this disease and, letting people know how it affects not only the individual that has Lyme disease, but the parents, the siblings, the whole community around them. Because again, people didn't understand what I was going through. And then when they read this story afterwards, they just felt horrible. They're like, my gosh, why didn't you reach out to me? And I'm like, I couldn't. I was just trying to survive. So for me, with the whole grief journey, it's always been attaching it to something greater than my emotions, because I think I just didn't really want to deal with my grief. I almost felt selfish, like, oh, I don't want to deal with my grief. I mean, look at everything that Alex went through. I mean, that was, pain, that was suffering. I'm just, no, I don't want to, deal with that. So writing this book definitely helped me to put, my feelings in check, and then hopefully to help others. Like, when you're going through these horrific things, go through the processes, grieve however best you can, and then move forward with it. Like create something from it.
Let's focus on that a little bit more. And I do want to get Alex's input on this. One of the things we've come to observe through our almost 300 podcast episodes is that purpose is vital to healing. That folks who are on the journey who do not have purpose have struggles with their healing journey, that you essentially become rudderless when you're suffering from this disease. And the people who ultimately get to purpose are the people who then go on a healing journey. So I've studied purpose because of that observation. And I think the leading expert on purpose, at least in the US, is a Cornell University professor named Anthony Burroughs. What Anthony Burroughs argues is that there are actually 3 paths to purpose and ultimately happiness. And we can't be fulfilled unless we find our purpose. And he argues that one of the ways that we get to purpose is through a life-altering event. And I think that's certainly something that happened with both of you. So Alex, give me your perspective on how this life-altering event led you to purpose and how that allowed you to help your daughter go on a healing journey and ultimately write your beautiful book, Miley's Lyme Story, which I'm holding up for at least on camera, but this is an audio podcast, so I don't know that I need to hold it up.
That's okay. No, thank you. So I definitely, I went through it. I mean, there were times where I felt like I cried every single day because Madeline was so young and she didn't understand it. And I would just pray to God every single night. I would say, can you just give me the lime, or can you just give me the confections, and I'll deal with it, and just leave Madeline alone. I mean, I don't feel I was as gracious. I was frustrated. I was scared more than anything. And I was probably more scared than anything because I already knew that we were in a chronic stage. And like I said, I've read Jody's book 3 times. It took me 3 times to truly understand pain comes purpose. And even though that is the motto and that's the theme of the whole book, it did not hit with me until this very last time. And I felt like I had healing. Like I finally understood, you know, I don't know, it's been maybe 5 or 6 years. It's taken me this long to finally understand, you know, pain comes purpose. So it's finally hitting me because I'm understanding, you know, those feelings that I went through as a mom, you know, because obviously you want to always take your child's pain away. You don't ever want them to go through, you know, the pain and the suffering. You'll just take it away from them and see how you can do it. And then when you're unable to do that, oh, it feels like torture. And Jody, I mean, I know what Alex went through was, you know, I can't even describe it or put it into words what she went through. And I can't even imagine what it felt like for you just having to go through that. And I know it must have felt like just boom, boom, boom. We just have to get this done. And I'm just, I'm still even in shock that, you know, Alex, you know, would find a list or find, you know, facilities to go to. And you guys were just, boom, let's go, let's get this done. Let's call, you know, or Alex would write. There's a lot of things that you guys did, and it helped me heal. It really did. I mean, your book, like I said, it took me so long, but I finally understand pain comes purpose. And it was one of those things like I had to heal, and I had to come up with, okay, I need to, you know, buckle up, get Madeline, you know, in remission. And I had always wanted to write that book, and how am I going to do it? Where am I going to go? I think you might have been in the same boat too, right, Jody? How are we going to publish this thing?
Oh gosh, yes. I mean, and again, you know, I said I'm not a writer at all. And I was kind of cursing my daughter as I was writing this, going, you know, Alex, it really would have been easier if you journaled and blogged, but she didn't. All I had were her medical records, right? So I'm trying to recreate everything that she lived through. But you know, Alex, you had said something I want to touch on. I remember at so many different points in Alex's journey, I was just this twisted sister because as parents, we want to fix things. We're the fixers, right? Something happens with your child, you fix it. I couldn't fix this, and it was driving me crazy. I would scream at God. I would say, listen, here's the deal. You either take her right now or heal her, but this in between, this purgatory, this hell, I can't keep doing this any longer. Like, I just don't have the bandwidth to do it. And that's where I had to start turning this around and really getting my own strength to help my daughter, because I was losing it. I just had so many emotions running through, but yeah, it's a journey that we don't wish on anybody, for sure.
So Jody, I think the first reason why we want to recommend this book to folks is it shows them a path out of the grief cycle so that they can find purpose and ultimately move forward with helping their family members, if it's a family member that you're helping, or if you are yourself on the journey, getting through the grief cycle so that you can now read the body signals that are available to you and start to take steps to help in all the different ways that you can help. Obviously, the second reason why we want to advocate for people to read this book, and I think Alex just gave us a beautiful outline, is it will also help people to heal. It will give them a framework for healing, as it did for Alex, who had been on her own journey. And because of her reading your book, it gave her a framework for healing, gave her some peace, knowing that there's some closure in her own life. So 2 really powerful reasons why we have to advocate for people for reading this book. So now let's talk about a third reason that I found to be really powerful. And the third reason I found really powerful is, I think if you are a patient on the journey, or you're somebody who is managing chronic Lyme disease, unfortunately, it's hard for you to see what everyone else is going through, right? And it's another one of these sort of destructive cycles that kind of develops in so many cases where Lyme is an isolating disease, right? But part of the reason why it's isolating is not only because you're sick, but you can't, you're not healthy enough to be able to let other people know what your needs are so that they can provide you with the help that many people who love you want to provide for you.
Right.
So now what your book does is it sort of gives both sides of this so that it can give the patient an understanding of what their family members are going through so they know how to communicate with their family members about what they need. So talk about how that was an important perspective that you wanted to share when writing this book.
Right. So gosh, the whole, validity and having people believe in a disease that the medical community, still is so ignorant on is tough. I mean, when you get Lyme disease, not only are you, battling to figure out your own treatment, but you're battling to, figure out doctors to help you navigate through this, and as well as, educating family and friends. So with this book, I really wanted to be vulnerable with Alex's story and with my story, and really let people into our private world, so to speak, like what it really felt like. And I'm hoping that through this book, people can see the journey that an individual with Lyme disease takes. It's a very lonely journey because we can't understand. I, for one, as a parent, couldn't even understand everything that Alex was suffering, the pain. I didn't get it when she would say, my legs are burning. I have this numbing pain, all these things that she was trying to explain to me, and I just couldn't comprehend it. So hopefully this, book will help others to understand what a Lyme patient goes through. It will also help to, just provide, like I said, a glimpse into that world for the medical community. Yeah.
Yeah, so Alex, unfortunately, many relationships are destroyed by Lyme disease, and there are a lot of different reasons why relationships are destroyed. But one of the things that we've discovered from the folks who have been able to maintain relationships is that communication is the key. When you read the book, Alex, did you feel that you had a better understanding about how folks can communicate when they're on the journey, whether they be the patient themselves or the family member who's supporting them, how communication can improve between the patient and the support system, and then how the communication can improve between the support system and the larger community of people who would be interested in helping folks on these journeys.
Right. So in reading the book, I even felt Jody was communicating to me, a lot about mast cell. I actually was not very familiar with mast cell. Jody did an amazing job, really going in there and, I hate to say this, but dumbing it down because I really needed that. So thank you for communicating that and telling us and sharing about that, because even my mother had read this. My mom was like, we need to get this in every doctor's office, just because, going back to how well written it is. I think anybody can really take this in and truly understand, the symptoms, how one is living. And, there's several times in there that you say, Alex is listing her symptoms and you're like, wow, like you feel like this 24/7, but it's almost like a question mark, like how can someone feel this way?
Right.
Because a lot of people don't understand that. And I'll even say, I know, even when my Madeline, when she was little and she's telling me my legs hurt, I'm tired. That's her way of letting me know, hey, Mom, I don't feel good, but it's my job to take that in. And I'm going to say, okay, is Madeline really tired, or is she lazy, or is it the sun, or is it growing pains? And I, Jody, as a mom, it's like, how do we decipher what that is in regards to, them telling us like what's hurting them and what's bothering them, and then sharing that with other people, because I still have an issue. Even right now, we've been fine, or Madeline has been completely fine with Lyme, but I'm noticing we're slipping back into a realm that I'm not excited about. And, we were supposed to go to the zoo, and it's difficult for me to explain to other people why all of a sudden we can't go to the zoo when Madeline has been perfectly fine and a poster child for at least a year and a half. But she can't walk. She can't handle that kind of a physical day right now. So we had to X that out. But, there's a lot of people that understand, and I think over through the years, because they know our story, but I don't think that they really understand that it can come back and it can be that nightmare again.
Right. And Alex, you touched on something and I went blank earlier.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, but writing out the symptoms, right? Because I was trying to figure out everything that, was going on with Alex's body. And, we were getting PTSD because we would be taking her to these different doctors and facilities and the ER units, and she'd be dismissed as just having anxiety. And I was like, the drama parent, and really trying to, get a handle on, Alex, tell me exactly how you're feeling and where it hurts. And I would have her make these lists out. And I look at it and go, gosh, there's just like no way that this all could be, happening in one body. But I think that's such an important message for those that are listening to this talk right now is, definitely being your own advocate. You know your body better than anybody else, making those lists, helping to educate your caregiver, your mom and dad, whoever is helping you in this process. And I think this book, does a pretty good job on that and dumbing it down, right? Just making it very simplistic. So anyone who's, touched by Lyme disease or a chronic illness can communicate that better to the medical community, to people that are taking care of them. Because I think that was the hardest thing for Alex. And she got frustrated with me so many times. She's like, Mom, you have to believe me, all this hurts. And that's why I would, give her that power and say, Alex, then educate me, help me to help you, right? To tell other people where it hurts, how it hurts, so we can get you better. So that's so important for people to do that.
So let's talk about this as parents, right? Because one of the things that we have to do as parents is we have to help our children to learn how to read their own body signals, right?
Yes.
And quite frankly, as adults, we're in most cases not as good at doing that, even as we could be, right? There are just so many things that interfere with the signals that we receive. And one of the things that I've been talking with Matt about recently, we've been developing in some of these podcasts, is this argument that we know our bodies best. And although I think that is empowering on some level, because it does give us the authority to describe to medical professionals how we feel, but there are a lot of things that are interfering with the body signals that we receive, and we don't always know how to deal with that, with the interference that's coming from these signals. I know with young people, children, like both of you had to do it, they certainly didn't know their own bodies. They certainly didn't know how to read their signals. And they certainly didn't know what the interference was, right? Because pain is going to interfere with signals. People who are invalidating you and gaslighting you are going to interfere with signals. Your desire to be liked, and in some cases, a desire to be a people pleaser, are going to interfere with your signals, right? Because pleasing someone is going to be more important than the signal you're receiving, right? This whole suck it up culture is another thing that, like, are you really sick? Are you just being whiny? Suck it up kind of thing, right? So we have all of these different channels being interfered with because of these cultural pieces. So talk to us about how, you two now know how to empower parents, to empower children to first read their own signals and then communicate those signals so that healthcare providers will have better information to help to diagnose and treat us.
Do you want to go ahead and take that, Alex?
You know what? I was going to ask you too, but I do want to hop in first because you said something and it really resonated with me right now. You said to Alex, help me understand, your symptoms and what's going on so that I can help you, so that I can be ultimately your advocate. Right. And that to me is just everything. It's like Alex is not alone. She has a partner here. She has someone that's going to fight with her. not for her, but with her. And I think that right there is just everything. It's all about really sharing and opening up with, it can be one person, it could be multiple people, it could be even something online, share your symptoms and share your feelings and get it out and what's happening.
So Alex, isn't the bigger picture there though, what Judy did is she said, I believe you first.
Oh, yes.
Second, read your signals because only you can tell me how you're feeling. Then teach me or describe to me so that we can together advocate. So it's really like a 3-step process that she went through where she was validating, she was instructing her to rely on her feelings, and then she was teaching her on how to articulate those feelings. And so is that specifically what you're doing, Jody, or am I reading more into it than?
No, you know what? I think definitely with Lyme disease, it gets such a bad rap, right? There's such a stigma associated with it. And Alex had so many naysayers. She lost friends. So it was terrible. I mean, even her own family didn't believe that she had the disease. And just by me standing by her side and saying, you know what, I don't even know what this disease is, but I believe in you. And together we are gonna, see you through and get you better. That was everything for her. And every time we had doors slammed on us, she wasn't doing it by herself, right? I was there with her. So, I mean, that really, I think, helped to give her the perseverance and the determination and the spunk to say, all right, you know what? They just slammed, the door on our face, but we're going to walk through this other door. I mean, it just gave us, fuel to the fire to get to the right people. But you have to believe people when they are telling you that there's something wrong. You might not understand it. And that's the thing that still to this day, and don't get me started because that could be for a whole nother episode, but to educate our medical community, all right? We know that there's, a doctor cannot be everything to everybody, right? I mean, I understand that, but you need to listen. If somebody is coming to you, then there's something wrong with them. And it's between the doctor and the patient to figure this out together. Just don't, be dismissive. Don't just say because you don't understand what your patient is telling you that you're just going to walk away from it, or you're just going to not believe that there's something wrong with them, right? And for people that are listening to this episode, if you are finding doctors that are not listening to you, there's a million other doctors that you can go to. Alex and I went to over 40 plus doctors until we finally found the one that believed in her and, diagnosed her with the proper diagnosis. But yeah, you got to keep on believing in yourself, keep fighting for answers. We're all entitled to that, right? Our health is so important, and you've got to get your team together. You've got to find that, core team that's going to help you through this. And I was fortunate that we did have wonderful people like Lonnie Markham with LymeDisease.org, who's, has a section in my book talking about mast cell activation syndrome and some other things. There are people out there that will help you in your fight. So don't give up. Don't ever give up. And guess what? If you can't find somebody, then you call me or write to me and I will help you. I will be your advocate.
So Jody, let's talk about another one of the really important reasons why folks should be reading your book. We've already come up with probably 10, but let's come up with number 11, right? And number 11 is that Lyme disease presents in a number of different ways. It has a diverse set of presentations. It's called, of course, the Great Imitator. And because there are so many different presentations, and because it can imitate so many different diseases, it's perplexing to the medical community. Yes. So one of the things that we've observed is more times than not, the diagnosis comes from the patient first and imposes upon the doctor the duty to go through the testing and then to still stay with the patient on the diagnostic journey, even when the testing, which is flawed, we know, doesn't come back with a positive test. So let's talk about that piece of your journey where you reached out to a larger community, you got support from the larger community, and Matt and I call it bro science or sister science, where we have somebody telling us that they believe we have Lyme disease because our symptoms mirror something in their journey, which then puts us in a position where we can go to the medical community and advocate for ourselves?
Oh gosh, I don't wish any health crisis is on anybody. I don't wish cancer on anybody. I don't wish Lyme disease on anybody, but Lyme disease is very tricky. And I tell people, when you're diagnosed with cancer, it's a pretty good roadmap of what you need to do. You get diagnosed with Lyme disease, and here's your buffet. Okay, here's doctors you can choose from. Here's treatments that you can choose from, and maybe they'll work, maybe they won't. I mean, it's so exhausting, Alex, as you know, not only having your child to, be diagnosed with this complex disease, but even harder to find the proper treatment. And definitely in Alex's case, we just, ran out of time. We didn't have time to get that leg up on it after 10 years of being misdiagnosed. But for me, yes, I'm not a shy person at all. And when I found out that Alex, was diagnosed with Lyme disease, I just started reaching out. I mean, we have this thing called Google, right? Use it to your best advantage. I was just researching and trying to figure out who the best people are to work with. And that's how I came across Lonnie Markham and others in the Lyme community. And this Lyme community is a very tight community. Everybody is willing to help others and to share information and to share doctors and to share treatments. Lonnie painstakingly, for weeks talked me through it. And her daughter, Savannah, who is Alex's age, who also had the same symptoms as Alex did, was Alex's hero, right? So it was just beautifully orchestrated by God that I had Lonnie and Alex had Savannah. And so I really encourage people when they are faced with a chronic illness like Lyme disease to do your homework and to find those champions in your corner that can really help guide you and walk you through this. Rich, before 2017, I'd never heard of Lyme disease, right? I mean, how can that be? That's not that many years ago, but I was ignorant. And when I did hear about Lyme disease, I thought, well, how can Alex have that? We live on the West Coast. So there's so much that we still have to do to bring this disease, where it needs to be. But definitely find those people in your corner that can help you and that can be that roadmap to doctors and to the information that you need.
So Alex, talk about how important community has been to you while you've been on your journey with your daughter, Madeline, because most people think of community in terms of emotional support. You can find other people who are like you, and therefore the gaslighting and the invalidation will be less painful because you find people who are like you. But we've actually observed that the more important element of community is that you can find people to help you on the diagnostic and treatment journey, because there's so little help from the medical community itself. You actually have to get it from the patient community and the family members who are supporting the patient community. So talk to us about what your journey has been like, Alex, as a member of the community.
Right. So I've been very vocal about Facebook. I know that's where I found a lot of my Lyme moms. It's been extremely helpful and instrumental for me, and especially with other symptoms that Madeline had displayed in the past. Also, recently, my father connected me with someone that has, symptoms. They can't find what's wrong with her. So I did share with her, why don't you try IGenics? So it goes back to what you're saying, in regards to getting help and seeking help from other patients, other people that have lived through this and that have gone through it. Jody and for me, I love being a part of Facebook groups, Lyme groups specifically, that are geared towards parents, not just universal Lyme groups. I like the ones that are with parents, the ones with, younger children. For me, I identify more with that because, I have an age range that I'm working with. So I feel like that's really important. But yeah, I feel like Facebook has been very, very, very instrumental. It's been very helpful. It's been very validating, especially when I was a new mom with a child that was sick. I wasn't crazy. There were other parents out there like me. It's so sad. I went on Facebook yesterday and I sent a screenshot to my mom, and there's a mother on there and she's listing her child's symptoms. She's like, my child's falling asleep. My child's complaining of legs, leg pain. My child is doing this. And I was like, oh my gosh, I said, this was Madeline, but I did not think Lyme disease. So I definitely love communicating online. That's really where I found a lot of my help and my support. And to this day, I'm friends with a lot of moms that I've met on Facebook, and our kids, talk. So it's really helpful. And it's really nice that Madeline knows that there's another child similar in her age that has the same thing, Lyme and co-infections.
That's, and when you say that about Madeline, I know for Alex, from her, bed, that was her source of communication, is reaching out with others and feeling that she wasn't alone. Yes, she was physically alone, but she had a community. She had other people that were going through what she was going through. And so she didn't feel like she was this odd man out, right? It's like, okay, there are other people. It's not in my head, like so many of the doctors were telling her. So I think that was, so important for her being in those Facebook communities. And, with our foundation, the Alex Hudson Lyme Foundation, we do have several resource tabs on our website page, because I wanted to give people that jump start, because it took me a while to get going when I found out that Alex had Lyme disease. Lonnie was great, but it still took me a while. So I wanted to make sure that I could help others to have a quicker jump start, because this disease, as we know, doesn't just sit back. Once you have it, it takes off, and you've got to be, aggressive, and you've got to make sure that you are staying on top of it. So it's important for that information to be shared.
So Jody, can you give us some detail on mast cell, right? Because it is one of the presentations of Lyme disease, and we know that that there is a large subset of the Lyme disease community that has to deal with mast cell symptoms. So can you share with us what lessons you learned about mast cell and what you shared in the book, again, as maybe the 12th reason people should be reading this book?
If you think Lyme disease is funky, then mast cell is like off the charts funky, right? So mast cell is mast cell activation syndrome. I'd never heard of it until, again, Lonnie, you should have Lonnie on the show, by the way, if you haven't yet. She has so much knowledge, but she is the one who connected me with Dr. Larry Afrin. And he is really the guru, the mast cell activation syndrome guru out of New York there. So as mast cell, to dummy it down, we all have antihistamines in our body, right? Those are good things. We need that. But for a system that is out of whack and that's been compromised, mast cells exaggerate your inflammation system. So let's say, Rich, one day you're eating a piece of apple, no problem. The next day you try and have that same piece of apple. And now as you're consuming it, your system is sending off these histamine levels that are out of whack, because they think that this is a foreign substance that's entering in your body and it's not good. So it's going to do everything right now to sound the alarms. Well, as it's sounding the alarms, it is creating havoc throughout your body, and everything is a million times horrific. So, inflammation and pain and all this other stuff just goes off the charts. In Alex's case, she was limited to about 10 different types of foods that she could eat because of this mast cell activation syndrome. She was limited to different types of water. When she started this journey, she was 122 pounds. Because of Lyme disease and mast cell activation syndrome, she passed away at 57 pounds. I mean, that's what mast cell does to your system. I encourage people to read about it. We have a whole section of it on the Alex Hudson Lyme Foundation website. But in a nutshell, that's what mast cell activation syndrome is. It completely miswires your entire immune system.
And essentially, you have an allergic reaction to everything, right? And the allergic
Correct.
reaction ultimately causes your immune system to go into overdrive, and your body destroys itself.
She had, like anaphylactic shock. I mean, she would get throat closures. She would eat something and just immediately her skin would be on fire. Like, think of it as a painful sunburn, right? And someone's like putting kerosene on it. I mean, literally, when, again, getting back to help me to help you so I can educate your doctors. And I would ask her, what does it feel like? Those were things that she would write down. Those were the descriptions. Can't even imagine how painful it was for her.
So let me ask the two of you another question. One of the things that we find really frustrating about Lyme disease is, and I'm actually going to start doing some videos on this, is it's a disease without a definition, right? Almost every person, every expert you ask to define Lyme disease will give you a different definition, right?
Yes.
The generally accepted definition is that it is an infection caused by one strain of one form of a bacteria. But then you have other experts who will say it is a microbial infection, right? Where it is multiple germs. Some call it Lyme plus, some call it other names. Then we have some that say we have to get divorced from Lyme disease, the word Lyme, because it just has so many different definitions, right? So we don't even have an agreement on what causes Lyme. We certainly don't have an agreement on what the symptoms are, whether they're acute symptoms or they're chronic symptoms, and what are the chronic symptoms, because it presents so many different ways, right? And I guess even more interesting is we can't even agree on what causes Lyme disease. Will it be a tick bite? Will it be a fly? Can it be sexually transmitted? So we have all of this diversity within the definitional element of something. And if you can't define something, how are you going to ultimately manage it or ultimately defeat it? So give me your thoughts as parents who are now facing this disease that simply doesn't have a definition about how you get it, what it'll do for you, and how it will present.
Therein lies the greatest problem, right? Problems. I mean, how do you fight for something that the medical community doesn't even know how to define, that everybody has different symptoms of, that you can't explain to others, even when you're trying to do interviews, without people looking at you like, okay, she's a wackadoodle as well. I mean, the stigmas just go on and on and on. And I think through this book, I'm trying to demystify, some of what Alex endured, some of what I still endure, because I still feel like some people look at me like, God, a little questionable, because you can't make this stuff up. I mean, it's just so, again, and I hate to use cancer. I need to, think of better things, but with cancer, it's tried and true. With this, there's just so many hard things about it. So how do we make it easier? How do we put, better research into it? How do we get doctors to all agree upon something? I don't know. I think, Rich, I'm going to spend the rest of my life trying to figure out how to make this better for people, because I do not want people to go through what Alex suffered and what I still continue to struggle with as I talk to people about it. There's got to be easier ways to break it down.
Well, thank you. And I thank you for dedicating your life to this. And I thank you for finding this purpose, because it's going to be the moms that are ultimately going to win this battle. It's one of the reasons why we're asking moms to co-host with us, because I don't have any faith that the medical system is going to be able to resolve this problem. I have absolutely no faith that the academics are going to be able to resolve this problem. But I have a lot of faith that moms are going to be able to resolve this. So as one of my favorite moms, Alex, talk to me about the challenges you've had to face with trying to help your daughter manage a disease without a definition.
Yeah. So, I think one of the hurdles is definitely even understanding it ourselves. I know, Jody, you said that you didn't even know what Lyme disease was. It wasn't even on your radar. And you think back, we're only in 2022. That was only 5 years ago. It wasn't even on my radar. So imagine us as moms, we're trying to figure out, okay, how are we going to, do the research and look this up? And I have people in my life that have Lyme disease. So it wasn't too new, but again, I was the people that were trying to explain this to. I just thought, oh, okay, you have Lyme disease, you got bit, you're gonna be fine. And then they still have some lingering symptoms, but it never clicked, and I never went deep. It was very surface based with me. Just, okay, they're still struggling. It's okay. Like, they'll be fine. But then when it comes into your own home, and I wasn't really that well versed about it. And then I know you said that you weren't either. And it was like, okay, I need to dive in and figure out what is going on too. And I need to research. I need to educate myself. I need to be better and smarter and faster than the doctors that are going to come my way with a 1-2, this is not what your kid has, go home. So in regards to that, I just think that I don't know how to say this in a better context, but I think I needed to communicate with myself first to swallow that, so that I could better educate and communicate and share with others. For example, yesterday I had said that, my father introduced me to someone that has symptoms, for which we believe to be related to Lyme or is Lyme. I wish you guys could see the messages that we're sharing, because I sound crazy. I'm like, oh, you can't do the Western blot. I don't think that's going to work for you. And she's like, but why? And I'm like, I really would go through IGenics, and I'm explaining to her, how Lyme can hide, and how Lyme can be, a multiple bases of other things. And, it's really just about finding how to communicate and to share without overwhelming people too, and without scaring them, because when you really just break it down, I think a lot of people just look at it and they're like, there's no way that this is Lyme disease. It's not possible. But
you know what, Rich, I think we've all been through a lot with this pandemic, but I always look for the silver lining. And I think for us in the Lyme community, with people having COVID and these long haul symptoms, people are starting to go, oh, wait a second. So Lyme disease, you have these symptoms and you just don't take a round of antibiotics and they go away. Yeah, I can kind of understand that now, because this person I know had COVID. And so we're having this aha reckoning moment. People are starting to, I feel like things are starting to change and shift a little bit more in our favor as far as the understanding, because of what's happened with people that got COVID and are still dealing with those symptoms. So I don't know if you kind of feel that same way, Alex, but I kind of feel like it's helped to support our case with Lyme disease and the tricky diagnosis of it, and the buffet of symptoms that so many people have, because not everyone fits the same chronic Lyme.
Right. I have been seeing a lot of articles on COVID and people that are still having, oh my goodness, help me guys. What is it?
The long haul,
kind of symptoms afterwards.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah. Chronic symptoms.
Yeah.
Yes. I have been seeing a lot of that. And I'm seeing a lot of people say oh, well, this is the same thing as Lyme. This is what Lyme patients deal with. Same thing, same road.
And one of the things that I'll share, and I don't want to share Matt's story. I'll let him share this. But Matt had some struggles at work, which is what caused us to come together. And there were many people who were not sympathetic to Matt's long haul symptoms, with Lyme disease. But COVID has actually torn through his job. Many people at his job have had COVID, and several of them, some of whom were not particularly kind to Matt, are now suffering from long haul symptoms.
Yeah.
So there is sort of this, you're right, this epiphany that has happened,
Yes.
I think, culturally, generally, but I also think because so many people have these long haul symptoms, they now understand, in a real way, what it's like to have chronic symptoms and long haul symptoms. And because of that, hopefully there will be more empathy and sympathy for the folks who are going through this, and they will hopefully feel more supported and therefore can get to a place where they can heal, right? Because when you're being attacked in every way, you're being attacked by your own mind, you're being attacked by the people who you have intimate relationships with, you're being attacked by by outside people. I mean, when you're constantly under siege, you're in fight or flight and your body can't heal, right? So it is really sad that we had to culturally go through a reckoning with COVID, but I think you're right. It is one of the positive elements of of becoming a more sensitive community to people with chronic illness. So Jody, let me ask you another question, because one of the things that I really found to be powerful about your book is that you actually also wrote a really powerful 1-year anniversary letter, which was really powerful. But you also actually included in the book letters and texts that you had received from your daughter's friends, and then your son wrote a really beautiful piece. So talk to us about why you included so many different perspectives in this book, so that so that people would see that it wasn't just you and your daughter who were in pain, but this was a disease that affected an entire community.
Yeah, absolutely. Because when someone does have chronic illness, it absolutely impacts, so many different people, not only the person that has it and the caretakers, but people in their circle as well. And I think I, again, just wanted to present, we all think our children are just wonderful and special, right? But it really touched me that
every one of them.
And it just really touched me how many people, Alex's life had impacted, and the different relationships that she had, and just how strong, her relationships were, especially with her brother. I mean, they were best friends, and, everything that he went through and is still going through upon her passing. But oh gosh, yeah, I have to sit for a moment on that. It's still years later, it's still hard for me to talk about the losses, because she was just so strong, and for people to look up to her, it's pretty overwhelming.
And it really was really powerful, especially the way her brother described looking up to her, and he described their relationship. It was really, really beautiful. It really is. So I'm going to let Alex talk about this, because it's going to make me start crying as well. So Alex, talk about how you were moved by the pieces that I'm giving you the credit for this book, Alex, that Jody included in both Jody's letter after the 1-year anniversary, and then the letters from the friends, and the letters, of course, from Alex's brother. Talk to us about how that impacted you when you were reading the book.
So for me, I loved reading those letters to Alex, especially because it let me know that Alex did have people that loved her and that validated exactly what it is that she was going through, and ultimately the way things had ended. It was really nice to know, because throughout the book, we do hear from a lot of core people. We do hear from her friend, in and out, and we do hear of Garrett, and of course Jody, her father. And it was just really nice just to read the last pages and the last letters, just to see that Alex wasn't alone, and she had a lot of love around her. It's just beautiful, Jody, and she's so loved, and I love that you're sharing her with us. And I tell you this all the time, thank you for sharing Alex, because without this, I don't think a lot of people would truly understand the battle that is behind Lyme, and the battle that parents are having to go through for their children, because there is no there really isn't there's not a lot of help. There's help out there, but it's not very straightforward. It's going to be a battle, and it's going to be it's going to be a lot of, zigzagged roads to get there.
So now that I've composed myself, I just have to, I would be remiss if I didn't interject this, because for those of you that have read the book, my faith and Alex's faith was everything. And we talked earlier about, the support and finding how you can, find your groups, your strength, your core people to help you through life's challenges. And definitely for Alex and myself, it was our faith. And, I tell people I'm so blessed that I had Alex in my life. Yes, it was only 22 years, but in the 22 years that she was with us, she did so much for this Lyme community. And, she was this amazing warrior. And in my letter to her, I didn't even really need to write the letter, because she already knew, and she continues to know what I do every day, because she's guiding me, right? This is her foundation. Everything that I've done, we are still doing together. She just is, that guiding light for me. But our faith got us through. And if she did not have her faith, she, wouldn't have been able to help me to move forward and to, show me in that split second when she passed away, where I'm going to be at the end of my journey, whenever that is, whatever that looks like. But, I'm so in awe that Alex did something so meaningful, so impactful, that's going to carry on for years. Her awareness and what she brought to this disease, it's going to have, it already has so much meaning, so much hope for others. She kind of is the roadmap in showing people, don't give up, right? Keep pushing through. And when you feel like you can't go on any further, there is a God that will help you through. And yet, you know what? Her storyline maybe wasn't as the parent what I wanted, but it was what God wanted for her life. And so I need to continue to honor that surrendering of my will for God's will with what he wanted for Alex's life. And in that letter, it's basically stating that, gosh, Alex, I'm so proud of you. And we're just going to continue to carry on with whatever it is that we are called to do. So, so I just had to say that, because that really, again, for those that have read the book, my faith really got me through. And it doesn't, work that way for everybody, but I know in my life, it made me a stronger, better person.
Well, Jody, that's actually the next point that I wanted to get to, because one of the things I think is really powerful about this book is you portray this physical battle in a very powerful way. You portray the emotional battle in a very powerful way. And then you also portray the spiritual battle in a very powerful way. And I think that's the strongest part of this story. And part of what I wanted to ask you is, talk to us about why you chose to begin each chapter with scripture, and what role that played in both your journey and Alex's journey with Lyme disease.
Right. So Alex, she wasn't always a very spiritual person, but when you are knocked down on your feet like this disease did for Alex, she had to find something that was going to sustain her and help support her. And so she really turned to her faith. And she would go through the Bible, and she would find scriptures and verses that just really resonated with her. And so she'd write them on these 3x5 little note cards. And, we had talked earlier about Lyme disease symptoms and how it impacts everybody differently. Well, as I said, she was 122 pounds, and when she passed away, she was 57 pounds. So obviously her digestive system was just shot. And she, it was hard for her to eat, but she knew that it's something that she had to do to sustain herself, because she didn't want to have to do a TPN. That was really her last resort. So she would sit there at the dining room table, and she'd read her Bible, and she'd write these verses on these little 3x5 cards. And then when it came time for her to eat, even like a little bowl of rice, it would take her maybe 2 hours to eat. And she would sit there just spoonful after spoonful, trying to consume nourishment. And she would read these cards, and she'd have like Christian music playing. And I had to walk away because I couldn't watch it. But she was trying so hard just to fight and just to try and sustain her body. And so when I was writing this book, I knew that I wanted to share those scriptures and those verses with the readers, because if it helped Alex, maybe it would help them as well. Maybe they would find something in the Bible and those scriptures that would give them sustenance as well. But yeah, that was really, her faith was just so important for her. And there were times too that she would carry those 3x5 scripture cards, because she would be like at CVS pharmacy and she'd be picking up different prescriptions or whatever. And I remember this one time I had to go to a different aisle and Alex was somewhere else in the store. And within 10 minutes, she came to me and she was crying. And I said, "What's wrong?" She goes, "Mom," she goes, "this lady came up to me and she said, it's really not healthy for you to be so thin. I don't know why you're trying to starve yourself." And I was just shocked. And I said, "What?" And I go, "Where's this woman?" I go, here I'm my mama bear defense. I go, "Where's this woman? I'll go over and talk to her." I said, "And did you tell her that you had Lyme disease?" And she said, "Well, no, I didn't. I just, it just really hurt me." And I was just shocked. I said, "Okay, Alex, so what we need to do is we need to make more of those scripture cards. We need to pass those out when people, say mean things like that. But we also need to make another 3x5 card, and you need to write down Lyme disease, and you need to put down the symptoms. So the next time someone says something hurtful to you, turn that into a training moment. Say, you know what? I'm really glad that you, are concerned about me. And here, I'd like for you to read up on Lyme disease because this is what I have. And I hope that this helps to educate you." So I think, finding those moments where something terrible happens to you, but turning it into an educational moment, giving those people like Alex and Maddie moments when they can take their power back when someone has zapped it from them.
So, Alex, I'm wondering if you read the book the same way I did. And one of the things that I was interested in before Jody shared with us that Alex did not journal is whether or not the cards that she had written, which became the headers for every chapter, ultimately became the framework for the book that her mom had written. Did you read it the same way and to see that really she was journaling and she was giving us a framework? We just didn't see it until ultimately the cards were put together with the beautiful story that Jody had written. Did you see it the same way I did?
Yes. It's funny that you say that. So I actually was thinking about Alex right now, as in the way that she's seeing this and the framework of the book. So absolutely. If anything, I think it's probably my favorite part of the book. It's something that I looked forward to in every single chapter because I felt like it was almost like a really personal nod to Alex. Like it was Alex here. Like she was, this was her way of being in the book, and it was really beautiful. And it's honestly, it's one of my favorite parts of the book. I think it's so unique and it's so different, and it's such a beautiful way to start the story and to know that Alex wrote these. These were, verses that helped her and that gave her strength. I think it's so beautiful, Jody.
So Jody, one of the things that we've observed is that the folks who have success on their journey, and you can define success however you want. I don't want to sort of roll into this ableist arena, but the people who have the most success on the journey are the people who are going through this personal development journey where they are developing physically, they are developing emotionally, and they are developing spiritually. And we're always kind of cautious about, discussing the spiritual piece of it, especially in a culture like ours. because in polite company, you don't talk about God. In polite company, you don't talk about spirit, right? And one of the things that we say here at Tick Boot Camp is we don't tell anyone what they should believe. That's not our place, but we certainly encourage people to pursue, the spiritual element of their life, whether it be, there are some folks that are pursuing it in a traditional Christian way. There are some people who are finding meaning through meditation, contemplative meditation. There are some folks who are, like Dr. Horowitz just wrote a book on star seeds, but, there is this important spiritual element to it. And I think you really very bravely and powerfully built out, the important element of that part of your journey. So I want to thank you for that as well. And I want to thank you for doing it in the way that you did it. So talk to us about that piece and what the reaction has been to the book as it relates to the spiritual element of your journey.
Oh man, that again, we need like a whole day to talk about some of these subjects because Rich, I toyed with that back and forth. I'm like, and even when I was done writing this book, I'm like, okay, now where's it going to land? Do I put it in the spiritual? Do I put it, just specifically in the scientific with the Lyme disease? I mean, and pitching this book, some people just didn't want to, look at it all. It's like, oh my gosh, that's a, heavy subject. I said, oh, Lyme disease, no, religion. Like, if I needed to be true to myself, I needed to be true to Alex. And I thought, no, I'm going to do it. And you know what, let the cards fall where they may, but my religion is so important to me. It was definitely important to Alex, and I have got to put it in this book. So it was, and I hate to even say that it was such a rolling of the dice, right? We shouldn't have to be in a society where your faith has to be kind of, put in check. I lead with my faith. And I said earlier, I'm so glad that we're able to talk about, Lyme disease and faith all in the same breath on this episode. But it definitely, no pun intended, took a leap of faith to put that in the book. But I knew that I had to, or otherwise that's not Alex's story. That's only part of her story. As much as the, Lyme disease was who Alex was, her faith was even stronger than that. Her faith was everything. So I had to include that in the book. I had to include how together, she helped me find my faith. Together, we stood there at that non-denominational church with our arms raised in spirit, saying, you know what, God, we surrender. Like, we are down for whatever is going to happen because we know that you are walking with us every part of the journey. And also, I have a chapter in here with Dr. Jill Carnahan, a doctor that let me, thank you, Dr. Jill, let me put in this book how she prayed with us. She wasn't afraid to say, yeah, Jody, I signed off on that. I did pray with you and Alex when you guys came to me in my office. And that, and it's, I mean, there's just so many blessings in this book that all came about because of God. How can I not put it in the book? When Alex passed away, $10,000, the exact amount that I needed for her memorial service. I didn't have $10,000, but Alex made sure that I was going to get $10,000. And it came a week after she passed away from someone in the Lyme community that read about Alex's story. I mean, the blessings just go on and on and on. When you align yourself with God, whether it's a book, whether it's a podcast, whether it's whatever, blessings are going to happen. And I'm here to tell those stories.
So let's talk about, as sort of the final pieces of this podcast, let's talk about the medium that the two of you had used to communicate your story, which is books, right? Every medium, as you had just pointed out, has advantages and disadvantages, right? Podcasts are a medium. Social media is a medium. And you both chose books as a medium. So talk to us, Jody, first. Why do you choose the book medium as the vehicle for sharing your daughter's story, and why do you think the medium works so well?
So yes, you know, I chose that as the medium, and it works so well. But I also in Fresno, I was and I still am a pretty good, you know, community figure there. So my book worked because of my success in the community and the support that I had with the local media, with the radio, the TV, the newspapers. It was people in the community really pushing me to write this book. And of course, you know, Alex already knew that I was going to write it, but I needed people in my wheelhouse to give me that nudge, to give me that permission to do it. And so once I in my head knew that I was going to do it, I had people sign off on it within the community and help push me through. I also have been blessed that this Lyme community has embraced Alex as their own daughter. You know, working with Global Lyme Alliance, working with Holiday Goodrow out of Denver, Colorado, Nicole, I mean, so many people, Allie Hilfinger, so many people supported me early on in the beginning. So, you know, in reaching out to them, trying to get their permission on this book as well. And once I knew that all my people were going to sign off on it, I'm like, okay, I can write this book now and I can get it out to more of the masses because I've got people's support that will help push it out. So yes, I've been very blessed to have so many wonderful people in my corner that made this happen for so many other people that didn't know about Lyme disease, that didn't know about Alex's story, to put it into print and now have it be on Amazon, have it already sold about 1,500 copies, having it reach people that it really needs to reach. But it really takes a village, right? And I know, I'm sure, you know, Alex can talk to you about the people that she's had in her corner that helped her with her book. But it definitely, this book, I have so many people to be thankful for that allowed me to write it, but then also helped me to push it out in this form that now it can be in print. God forbid, you know, if I get hit by a bus or maybe I win $1 million and I'm like, peace out, people, see you. I'm going to go on my little island and hang out by myself because I'm done with y'all. It's her stories in print, and I can be happy with that.
All right, Jody, if you win the lottery, we're going to come and find you. So don't think you're going to
I'll fly you over on my private jet for maybe about a week, but then you have to go.
All right, Alex and I are going to get on the boat and drag you back. So don't worry. So Alex, talk to us about, and I do want to share with our community, I finally got my signed version of Miley's Lyme story. I had purchased my version of this a couple of months ago, but I finally got my signed copy. So thank you, Alex and Madeline, for sending me a signed copy of this beautiful book. So talk to us, Alex, about why you chose this medium and how the medium has worked so well for you, because you, of course, have written one of the first books, and in my opinion, the best children's book on Lyme disease.
Thank you.
Wait, and I just have to interrupt really quick. Thanks, Alex,
Yes.
for making me feel like a schmuck because I have to send him a signed copy now. I have not done that.
High five, Rich. No, no. You know, same with Jody. I'm not a writer. It was pretty challenging, especially for me. I'm not great with words, and
I disagree.
But
yeah, totally.
It was a pretty big challenge for me, and so I knew when Madeline was diagnosed, I knew the books that she liked to read. She liked to read very colorful books, and so that's more along the lines of what had happened. And I wanted to find a children's Lyme book that was very friendly, very vibrant, and a little bit more light yet educational for Madeline. And I wanted something that she could, I don't want to say have fun with, but also not see it as scary. So that's kind of like how we started. And it just kind of took off from there. It was a challenge. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know about publications. I didn't know about editors. I did not know about illustrations. I didn't know about how important a front cover is. Jody, I'm sure you learned, the front cover is everything. It's really what's going to, grasp the reader, whether they pick it up or not. So there was just so much to learn, and I'm just really honored to be in the same category. Jody, we're both authors.
I know. Can you believe it? Oh my gosh.
No, it's really mind blowing. And I'm really honored to be in the same category as you. And it's fun. It's been a learning experience, right? Are you going to write another one?
Oh, I don't, girlfriend, I am just a couple years older than you. I'm too old for this.
So Alex, I want to get your reaction to something else.
Yes.
You and I interviewed a woman from Scotland,
Yes,
Kate,
Yes.
who actually did some videos. I don't know if you saw them after our episode. She actually got your book. And for those of you who have not listened to episode 263 of our podcast, what Kate Petrie shared with us is that she grew up on a farm. She was bitten by ticks all during her childhood and ultimately became chronically ill. And she put up videos saying that had she had Alex's book during her childhood, she believes she would not have Lyme disease. How do you feel about Kate putting up those videos? And how do you feel about the importance that your book is, or the role that your book is playing in educating children in the community?
Wow. That's pretty awesome. It's pretty awesome. Yeah, it's just about getting more information out there. It's about getting awareness. Madeline was actually asked to read her book to the second grade class over at her elementary school. And I was really surprised. I did not expect this, but the kids had questions. They wanted to know more about Lyme disease. They wanted to know more about getting bit. They wanted to know more about which bugs, this can come from. They were actually really intrigued. And obviously they were intrigued because they have no idea what Lyme disease is. And this all goes back to, a really awesome thing that Jody's also has done. You've worked with the Girl Scouts, to help educate them. And, it's really nice because they get a patch at the end. And we all know that's, their goal. They want to get, the vest full of all the patches, Madeline's and Girl Scouts. So it's just really about, educating and just spreading it out there. Like I said, Madeline's second grade class, she's in fourth grade. They all had questions and they were all really eager to ask. And it's because they have no idea what Lyme disease is. Right. No idea. So, it all starts at home too. We need to educate, the parents.
Right. So we need to be aware, cognitively aware. We need to be emotionally aware where we have some understanding. And then, of course, we have to have physical awareness so that we can take action. Right. And we need to have all the steps of action. And both of you coming from with the same medium, but coming to a different audience is doing the same thing, right? You're putting people in a position where they now have the awareness that neither of you had before your children got sick, that will hopefully put them in a position where they can educate their children so that their children can protect themselves, and they as parents can hopefully identify the challenges before people become chronically ill. So to tie up the podcast, Jody, let's talk about what's going on now with the book. I mean, the book has gotten a great deal of attention. The sales are rigorous, and now you're being called to speak in places that you never would have been called to speak had you not written this book. So talk about how this book has changed your life and has transformed you into the advocate that you never dreamed you'd become.
Right. Gosh, Rich, Alex passed in March of 2018. And as you guys were talking, I had to go back through that letter that I wrote to Alex, because I can't even believe the stuff that's happened since she passed away. I have a full-time job. Like this is my side gig, right? I mean, I am like gainfully employed. And when you ask, oh, you're going to write another book? That's why I'm like, dear God, like it takes, as Alex knows, so much time. But yes, since, this book has come out, it has just been amazing the impact that it's creating both on the spiritual end and also both in the Lyme community. So I've been doing a lot of speaking engagements at churches, talking about, Alex's faith journey, my faith journey in the process. I have two really big conferences that I'm going to be speaking at this coming September. And again, just when you said about like with the cards and how Alex, is helping me, she helped me write this book when I was just blasting her earlier in the interview going, gosh darn it, Alex, you didn't even help me. And you guys are like, whoa, Jody, yeah, she did help you. I'm like, oh yeah, I guess she did. But so this September, I'm going to be one of the speakers for the Central California Women's Conference. It's about 4,000 ladies in attendance. And we just found out who the keynote speaker is, which is Dr. Jennifer Ashton, the ABC News chief medical correspondent. Interesting, right? So guess who's going to be getting a signed copy of My Promise to Alex?
And in addition to Rich getting his signed copy.
Yeah, in addition to, Rich, I'm already signing yours. Yours is already like in the mail, so to speak. But yeah, so hopefully, hey, who knows? Maybe next step will be Good Morning America. But I'd love how things, again, you do right by him, he's just going to set things up in your life. So I have that going on. And then a week later, I'm going to be speaking to 300 doctors at a medical convention who believe so strongly in this book. They have already bought 300 copies of this book. So yeah, this is just the beginning. I just believe that this is just the beginning in this whole awareness journey. And you know what? I'm good with all that. And if I can keep working with people like you, Rich, and with Alex, this is what I'm called to do, right? This is what I'm called to do. So I don't take any of this. I do joke around a lot. I'm a jokester, but I don't take any of this lightly. I mean, I want to do right by God, and I want to do right by Alex. And if I could create half the impact that Alex did in her 22 years, then I'm super blessed and honored.
I think that's a perfect way to end this podcast. In fact, I don't think I could do anything other than make myself look dumb if I say something other than that's a perfect way to end this podcast. So Jody Hudson, I can't thank you enough for being kind enough to allow Alex Castellanos and I to serve as co-hosts and share the story. And I strongly urge everyone in our community to purchase and read this book. So Jody, as a sort of a final word, and this will be a final word, can you share with folks how they can get My Promise to Alex, Through Pain Comes Purpose, the book that you've written?
Yes, thank you so much. So if you go to our website, which is www.alexhudsonlymefoundation.org, on the homepage is the link to Amazon, where people can click on and purchase the book. And I really, should I say beg? Yes, I'm begging. If people read it and and it touches them, please leave a review. As Alex knows, reviews are very important to self-published authors. We don't have the big publishing houses behind us. It's just by word of mouth that we can get this book out. So the more reviews that are put on our book, the better off it will do. And this is an important story to get out. So I really appreciate the time that you let me talk about My Promise to Alex with everybody.
And we're certainly going to encourage everyone not only to purchase the book, but also to write a review. And I did commit to you, Jody, earlier, and I'll now commit to it publicly. I'll be writing my review and putting up my review. And Alex, thank you for finally sending me a signed copy of your book as well, because one of the things I also want to share with our community is Matt Sabatello rarely reads books, yet everybody sends him signed copies of the book. I read all the books and no one sends me signed copies. So I don't want to sound like a whiner, but I do want to make sure that folks, when you send me your books in the future, I would really appreciate getting a signed copy and not just sending one to Matt. So with that being my final wine, I want to again thank you too for being so kind to share your time with the folks in the Tick Boot Camp community.
Yes, thank you, Jody.
Oh my gosh, this has been awesome. Thank you both so much.
Thank you for listening to the Tick Boot Camp interview with the author of My Promise to Alex, Jody Hudson. To our listeners, we have a call to action. First, if you would like to learn more about Jody Hudson, visit her Instagram page at Research for Alex. Second, if you enjoyed this episode of Tick Boot Camp podcast, please share it with your friends by using the social media buttons you see at the bottom of the post. Third, Tick Boot Camp has created a Tick Bite blueprint that is inspired by the information that has been provided by the past guest on this podcast. We urge you to visit our website at www.tickbootcamp.com to view the blueprint. Please note that we would appreciate any input or improvements you would like to offer. Fourth, don't forget to subscribe to this podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or Spotify to get the automatic episode updates for our Tick Boot Camp podcast. And finally, we thank our community for your comments on our past podcast episodes. Please take a minute to leave us an honest review on Apple Podcasts, on Instagram, or on our website. We make it a point to read every single one of the reviews we get. Thanks for listening.